Now we come to a group of films which depict our trip to France, most of what we did while we were there, and then eventually our return. Here we are, we've left Minot Air Force Base and are driving into Minot itself. Our trip now jumps to Bimidji, Minnesota, on our trip home for our leave prior to going overseas. Here's Paul Bunyan and his Blue Ox Babe. Landmarks at Bimidji. And in the foreground you see the Packard. We are now cutting across Upper Michigan. At Slt St Marie, we will cross over into Canada and finish our trip to Plattsburgh by that route. Certainly was a miserable day for traveling on this particular day. Here we are at Slt St Marie Locks. We'd spent the night on the American side and got an early start in the morning. We have to cross over to Canada by this ferry that you see here and continue our journey once we reach the other side. See some of the other ships in the vicinity, some tugs such as that one. Also some Coast Guard vessels are moored here. There's the Coast Guard station itself. And off in the distance over there you see some lake steamers. They're cargo vessels that are peculiar only to the Great Lakes. We're now in Canada and heading east over what I think is known as the Trans-Canada Highway. Here again, no superhighway. It's two-lane traffic. How in the world we ever made trips from one place to another without superhighways, I'll never know. There's Debbie in Oswego, down at the end of 4th Street, down at the corner of 4th and Bridge. Went along with Mike and Steve. And we're visiting my folks prior to going overseas. There you see my mother and father, my mother holding Debbie. I believe this was a, was this a 4th of July parade that they were having? Couldn't have been. No, because we were in France for the 4th of July, so this had to be something that took place earlier in the year. Something I believe that the college put on, and the parade went right down at the corner from where my folks live, and then went up the street, went up 4th Street. Here you see some vintage automobiles. And here are some of the old-timers passing a stalled, fairly new car. We'd done a little fishing. There's a rock bass that Mike had caught. A little closer shot of it. This picture was taken in the backyard of my folks' home. And there's Patsy the dog checking out the fish also. Here we are visiting the folks that used to be our neighbors when we lived in Vermont. Ernie and help me with her name.
I think I was afraid you were going to ask me that.
Kay.
Yeah.
Ernie and Kay Martin, they're three boys. The house you see in the background over there was the one that we had purchased. And there's Kay with Debbie.
Chris, the baby. Was Chris?
No, Chris was the middle one.
No, there was Jay.
Chris was the fat one.
And Jeff. She only had three, didn't she?
Yeah. Jeff and Chris, and I forget what the baby's name was. He was about Debbie's age. This is their backyard. And as I said before, the yellow house in back was...
Jeff and Chris, those two boys right there.
Yeah.
Chris was the next one.
Yeah, yeah. We'll get a umpire's eye view of a baseball being pitched here in a moment. Debbie just does not want to be held on this particular occasion. A regular wiggly twist. This was a neighbor's dog. It's a Weimaraner, and quite a playful animal. Boys were throwing a ball, and she was bringing it back and pushing it through the fence to them. Here's Jeff throwing to Mike, and I was holding the camera directly behind Mike. There's a wild pitch. Now a view from behind the pitcher. Sunset on Lake Champlain. We're at the ferry dock waiting to get on the ferry to come back over to Plattsburgh. And this looked like a pretty nice shot. Would be more for a slide or a photograph rather than a movie, but here is Gloria and her mother hanging out the laundry at her folks' home on 5 Grand Street. Her mother has no idea I'm taking this picture. This was Dad's new Chevy that he had just got prior to us arriving. Saw a shot of my Packard and the original Tex.
And my sister Patsy.
And your sister Patsy, that's right. There's Mom with Tex and Linda Hauser. Bernice and Artie lived in Plattsburgh at this time. This is either late May or very early June 1961. Victoria's sister Barbara, and Barbara's husband Dick.
And my husband, Matt.
We're ready to leave now to
That was already...
go down to New Jersey to take our plane over to France. There's Debbie with her grandfather saying goodbye. And saying goodbye to Grandma. Kissing Grandpa's nose. Bernice doesn't want to be photographed, so she's holding her apron over her face. It's hard to believe this is the same girl that was showing off her lack of teeth earlier in the film. Linda and Debbie hugging goodbye. And Barb came down to break it up. Debbie saying goodbye to Dick. There we are, all gathered on the porch of the old homestead. There's Artie in the background. And here we are down at McGuire Air Force Base, and there's the plane. And here we are down at McGuire Air Force Base, and there's the plane that we eventually boarded and flew to France. I believe it was C-121 was the military designation. That as a civilian plane, it would be known as a DC-6. We're taxiing out now to take off. These are some of the other planes that are at the airport. Those were KC-97s, aerial tankers. Here we are, speeding down the runway and taking off. It's a very overcast, cloudy day. Our last look at the United States for 3 years. Looking down on the New Jersey countryside. Now we're going up through the clouds. One consolation is that we'd be seeing the sunshine once we got above them. And here we are up to altitude, looking out on the top of the clouds now, with the sun shining. We're over the ocean now, and through some of the breaks in the clouds you can see the blue water below, but not too many breaks.
Ireland?
Yes, I believe this is Ireland passing over. And now we see the coast of France. No clouds at all over the English Channel, but they start forming the minute you get to the coast of France. Right below the aircraft in a moment, you'll be looking down on the city of Dieppe. There it is. And this is our first glimpse of the city of Paris. As you can see, the flaps are down and we're ready to land. Here we are going over the housetops. First thing that struck us was the extreme number of red roofs. Most of the roofs were made out of a tile-like substance that was red in color. Here we are touching down at Orly Airport in Paris. This is a view out the window of a trailer, a temporary location on Ebru before we went down to Drew Air Base. This is a shot of the old submarine pens, German submarine pens at La Police, where I had to go down and pick up my car that was shipped by boat. There's a bunker. It was a heavily fortified location where, after Hitler took over France, he stationed his submarines at that particular base. This is a little town of Blovy, which was in between Drew Air Base and the city of Drew, where we lived, and this is a chateau that's in this little town. Notice a long approach to the chateau itself from the road. And a scene from inside the village itself